Thank you for joining us today for Round 8 of the Airlift Tanker Association Virtual Seminar Series. Now, please join me in a moment of silence in honor of those who gave their lives on 9/11. Thank you. Today, we will be discussing digital mobility operations in a remote environment, how Aircrew learned to cut the cord, and so can you. The views expressed in this presentation are those of the speakers and do not reflect the official policy or position of the United States Air Force, the Department of Defense, the U.S. government, or the Airlift Tanker Association. Please take advantage of the question and answer feature in Teams to submit your questions at any time during the presentation. There is no need to wait until the end of the presentation portion to submit your questions. The earlier we get your questions, the more likely we are to be able to get to them in the time allotted. Now it is my pleasure to introduce the Airlift Tanker Association Vice President for Programs, Ms. Patty Cost.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining us for this 8th round of our leadership series. Before we get started, I wanted to give you a little update on our virtual convention symposium and Tech Expo that we're having this year, 27 to 29 October. We have a great lineup of speakers, keynotes especially, to include the Undersecretary of the Air Force and the Chief of Staff of the Air Force. We also have a big lineup of informative seminars for you. Registration should be open in the next couple of weeks, so watch for that announcement. We'll also this year have a virtual exhibit hall where you can interact with industry leaders and see all of their latest technology. Now on to the seminar, and I'm going to turn it over to you, Major Cockburn.
Thank you, ma'am. First, on behalf of the team, I'd like to thank General McNabb for his unwavering support of Air Mobility Command and the men and women who execute rapid global mobility every day. We'd also like to thank the Airlift Tanker Association for its longstanding role of providing fellowship, championing air mobility innovation, and its stewardship of our MAF culture. While we're sad that the symposium won't be in person this year, we're excited for the opportunity that a virtual venue will have to reach out and impact more airmen. With the previous webinars, you definitely knew who you were listening to, and you probably had a general idea of what they were going to talk about. Today probably feels a little bit different. I imagine a lot of you don't know who we are or why we're here. First, let's start with the why. I'm not going to read the quotes on the screen from General Brown's recent publication of Accelerate Change or Lose, but they're up here during the intro for a reason. These thoughts will permeate throughout today's discussion. The COVID-19 pandemic imposed a connectivity and communication barrier that posed a significant risk to mission, one that we will dare say is new to wing and headquarters staff, but is all too familiar to aircrew and other remote warfighters. That's the inability to connect to the network and with command and control while operating on the boundaries. We're going to address connecting with airmen in their domain across a distributed and resilient system on a myriad of devices using any cellular, LAN, or Wi-Fi connection. AMC sponsors this requirement. A58 has validated the requirement. Hopefully we'll have some good news for you today. Now that we've introduced the theme, let's quickly meet the panel. My name is John Cockburn. I currently work at the Air Force Expeditionary Center as the chief of the CAG. But I bring today my experience as the 32nd Air Refueling Squadron's operations officer at the beginning of the COVID pandemic. To my side is Stephen Heptig.
I'm Stephen Heptig. I'm currently an ADO in the 2nd ARS, but I come to you with the experience of being the Chief of Innovation for the 305th AMW, representing the whole Joint Base of McGuire. Like others across the AFWorks network, our innovation team leveraged every asset we had to respond to the overnight quarantine earlier this year. Some of what you will see today started right here in our innovation lab and was deployed within days. I'll pass it over to Mr. Ward.
All right. Now my question to you.
Hello, my name is Ward Walker.
I'm the Chief Technology Officer, or CTO, for Air Mobility Command. I work in AMCA 6. It's the Directorate of Communications and Chief Information Officer. I retired in August of 2011 and came back to work here as a civil servant in the CTO job. My duties are to work across organizational lines to solve rapid global mobility gaps related to information technologies. I study new developments to increase awareness and understanding of what they are, how they might apply to Air Mobility Command, and to determine what our management response should be. Now I'd like to turn it over to Major Justin Poole.
Hello everyone, I'm Major Justin Poole. I'm currently the Director of Phoenix Spark at Travis, working in the innovation space, and currently deployed as the Operations Officer, 816th Air Expeditionary Squadron at Ali Al Salim. Coming to you as a former Air Force Ventures Fellow, experienced in the innovation space, and an early adopter and operational integrator of new technologies. Next, I'd like to introduce Eric Robinson.
Hey guys, Captain Eric Robinson. I'm also out at Travis and Phoenix Spark. I am part of the 21st Beeliners. I'm one of the early members, founders of Tron Air Force, and very close relationship with Platform One and the ABMS crew. And really what a lot of what I do right now is work to try to bridge the domain gaps between operational and technology so that we're building something that actually brings value to users. Cool, I'll take it back to Steve.
Thanks, Rob. As we mentioned before, the overnight quarantine that McGuire experienced back in March was one of the most existential threats that I've seen in my time in the Air Force for keeping our flying mission successful. We were forced to do every aspect of generating missions, training aircrew, and all of the support processes that go with it from home. Many of you will recognize the pictures on this slide. The magnetic puckboard, the physical binder for senior officers to wet sign flight orders, and then on the right, the paperwork for a single cruise package that they take on the road. When I say many of you will recognize this, I don't mean just those of us still wearing a uniform. My question to the group is, how many years can you be out of the Air Force and retired and still understand everything that's on that slide and what it means for flying airplanes? You could be out 10, 20, maybe even 30 years and still recognize everything. This process has not changed at its fundamental level for generations of Air Force pilots. I know that aircrew is not the only career field that experiences this stagnation in the Air Force. We had to figure out how to take all of this and do it from home with no warning, lack of VPN access, and a few handfuls of laptops among the squadron's members. In the innovation lab here at McGuire, we got to work attempting to solidify several of the enterprise solutions that the squadrons were falling back on immediately. You'll recognize those: Zoom, Slack, Google Classroom, Google Calendars, WebEx, and some other items that were out there that were used like Signal. Thankfully, before we spent money buying Slack licenses, a very tenacious and stubborn comm troop that helps us in the lab suggested multiple times and finally forced me to sit down and look at a little-known Air Force software program called Mattermost. We quickly deployed the chat program across McGuire, ultimately supporting 5 wings out of the lab here. We used it to get small groups of the most important people in leadership connected, and a few units began using the software for their daily office work, since the majority of people still did not have access to the VPN or any Air Force network for that matter. That all by itself was a huge success that manifested in a similar way across a handful of Air Force bases and organizations. If the story ended here, it would still be headline worthy, but we had no idea of the power that we had just found. Going back to these pictures and the way things have been done, all of our aircrew carry what is known as an electronic flight bag. It's an iPad with several critical programs installed. They've been around for a little over 10 years now in one form or another, and the program has progressed, and all aircrew owe a heartfelt thanks to the men and women that make it possible in AMC in the Air Force. But the reality is that the EFB from day one has been essentially a Kindle e-reader. We're required to download everything we need prior to departing home station. All of our Air Force publications, FCIFs, giant reports, the core of the paperwork that aircrew used to fly around the world had to be preloaded. You also carried a physical binder with you with all of your crew information, the G2 cut, which gives us the mission details, the go-no-go products that we use to make sure that all of our aircrew members are properly trained and up to date. The really savvy aircrews found ways to send some of that information to their iPads through AirDrop from their personal phones or other workarounds like Box.com. But in the end, what you left home with is what you had, no matter how long your mission was. This is the thesis that we'll consistently thread through our panel today. Whether it is aircrew or CRW troops or maintenance reaction teams or medical folks working in the field, airmen all over the Air Force working at the very edge of the military network do not have access to the many robust support systems, databases of information, or command and control, since most of those systems are IL5 and require the AFNet or CAT card login. So I'm going to pass it over to Major Cockburn, and he's going to explain our light bulb moment that came very quickly after employing Mattermost.
So as we were in the squadron very early on in the pandemic, we went into a hard crew environment. We had people stop coming to work, limiting face-to-face contact, and it quickly became apparent that we needed to find a way to provide command and control and execute the squadron's mission without these kind of antiquated systems. We quickly realized we'd hit the holy grail with Platform One's Mattermost. When I realized that you could access it on a web browser from the EFB, it was game on. It integrates with all the other apps on our electronic flight bag. We can get things in and out of Goodreader, and we can do all this stuff securely direct from any computer on or off the network, on or off the VPN, personal devices, government furnished devices, the EFB, all of it. So we built an ecosystem capable of digital mission paperwork, aircrew scheduling and management, go-no-go review, and flight authorization, validation, and signature. At the tactical level, this streamlines pre and post-mission sequence, but it also opens up the door for automated post-mission data management. Sorry, we didn't just stop there though. So Justin's going to describe some of our efforts at the operational level, which promise to expedite command and control at the speed of relevance.
Thanks. As John said, since that initial light bulb moment, airmen have been busy moving full speed ahead, adopting this commercial tool into a warfighting capability. An ADO cutting orders from a personal laptop, a flight manager at the AOC, or an aircrew member using their EFB on the road are all able to collaborate and send files on a common mobile platform. Since then, we've partnered with the 618th Air Operations Center to develop a CONOP to deliver mission packages directly to aircrews' EFBs at alert. This enhances safety and mission velocity. The AOC established a dedicated workspace where flight managers and AOC personnel can communicate and share data directly with the aircrew, something we have not had in the past. We are actively supporting operations right now at this time, delivering crew papers and conducting command and control via Mattermost. We also recently onboarded Theater Direct Delivery, a branch of the AOC that of entry for MAF users. A single account using a CAC or two-factor authentication gives you access to the full suite of Platform One tools, such as Mattermost, Hookboard, Widow, or some new yet developed mission application that can be deployed by any of our Rapid Global Mobility Airmen. Here on this slide, you see some examples of the way Mattermost is having an operational impact across the globe. At this time, the 816th EAS and 306 Banner Express Squadron have gone all in using Mattermost to manage crews, deliver packages, and conduct command and control. We're currently at various levels of integration, bringing maintainers, command post, squadron ops controllers, and DOs into a single channel to collaborate on government or personal devices. Truly groundbreaking. The process starts with sending crews their frag at their set via Mattermost. The squadron controller then is able to get ORM approval and positive alert for that crew, all via the chat in Mattermost. At alert, the flight manager sends the package directly to the crew's EFB using Mattermost. We're able to keep C2, maintenance, and squadron leadership updated in real time and coordinate for contingencies from alert to mission termination. The collaborative nature of Mattermost reduces extraneous phone calls, emails, and confusion. At the start of each shift, a controller or aircrew member can review all the previous messages, building a mental picture of all the previous events of the day. High resolution shared reality between support agencies and aircrew. If you look at the top left photo, you'll see an example of us in action, a C-17 delivering aid to Lebanon after the explosion in Beirut. Mattermost was the primary stage management tool used by MyOps controllers to launch multiple no-notice missions. This effort resulted in delivering 483,000 pounds of humanitarian aid to 300,000 displaced Lebanese citizens. Initially, we began setting multiple crews legal for Bravo while we waited for the situation to develop. All along the way, we kept the squadron informed on how the situation was progressing and when they could expect to alert. We accomplished all of these efforts as a squadron and an ops team by collaborating on Mattermost. If you reference the bottom left photo, we see a C-130 from the 86th Wing and the USAFE AMD executing the mobility mission, delivering crew papers to personnel out at austere locations in Africa, using nothing more than cell data and a connection with their EFB. These aircraft previously had no approved way to receive their mission information on government devices. In all of these examples, Mattermost was able to replace non-secure commercial solutions, giving the crew an ability to communicate while eliminating cyber vulnerabilities and increasing connectivity. Mattermost has been a powerful tool across the total force and multiple squadrons and having a real impact on the AMC mission right now. John, over to you for some more success stories.
So if you look to the pictures in the middle of the slide, you'll see the 89th Airlift Wing and the 86th Airlift Wing C-32 and C-37, which provide DV airlift. Both of those aircraft are using Mattermost in flight via their internet connection to troubleshoot with their comm network provider any sort of issues they have with their onboard systems. They gain space weather and other information as well. This is the future available today. Now imagine this system at IL-5 and IL-6. As we transition over to the right side of the slide, you'll see a hazy KC-10 and a Mattermost chat. On August 19th at 17:30 local time, all available aircrew were placed in Bravo status at Travis Air Force Base. 46 minutes later, the wing commander ordered the immediate evacuation of aircraft. At the evac order plus 2 minutes, the 9th ARS commander had waived crew rest and initiated a recall of all aircrew via Mattermost. Acknowledgements began pouring in immediately. Over the next hour, crews passed traffic updates, road conditions, gate information, all to each other within Mattermost. At evac order plus 2 hours and 21 minutes, the 9th ARS launched the first aircraft on verbal orders and with limited products delivered direct to their EFB through Mattermost. It would launch another 2 aircraft before any other squadron got one off the ground. At evac order plus 6 hours and 54 minutes, the final KC-10 launched on verbal orders. So from evac to final aircraft launch, under 7 hours. The following day, the evac deck commander established communication with crews and home station via direct channel in Mattermost. Written flight authorizations, go, no-go products, and other follow-on mission information were passed directly to the crews using Mattermost. This leads us perfectly into Mr. Walker's discussion of AMC's future efforts.
Thank you very much. Sandra, if I can get there we go, the joint all-domain C2 slide. So thank you, Majors Cockburn, Heptig, and Poole. It's awesome to hear about how you were able to repurpose a commercial tool hosted by Platform One, which was done for the software development community, and to engage it on your operational missions to bring more velocity with greater safety to rapid global mobility. I'd like to begin my comments with how I came to be involved with the Digital Aircrew Initiative. In fall 2019, I was keeping an eye out for solutions to AMC industry collaboration issues for the Civil Reserve Air Fleet mission when a Wicker Ram presentation by the AFSOC CTO caught my interest. It took several months before AFSOC was ready for a partnership, but just as COVID hit, AFSOC allowed AMC 50, then 100, then 150 Wicker Ram licenses to evaluate that capability. This impact level, or IL4 capability, showed great promise to connect airmen who couldn't get to AFNet and therefore didn't have a protected way to connect, to communicate, and to collaborate with each other. We began to push Wicker out, but we also got pushback or disinterest from a culture that, one, had been told to use U.S. government hardware and U.S. government software together, and two, had become reliant on AFNet email as its lingua franca. Travis Air Force Base was a large early adopter of Wicker Ram, with Major Poole being the lead advocate there. At this same time, the DoD and SAF CIOs revealed that they had been working on commercial virtual remote, CVR, for similar purposes. It was only IL-2, but it was being waived to be used for most IL-4 information. However, it was also strangely billed as very temporary, and it seemed to duplicate the Air Force Cloud-Hosted Enterprise Service, or CHES, Microsoft Teams application that AMC had cut over to in mid-2019. CVR had better access but worse security than CHES. Out of this capability overload, we became aware that Aircrew on the East Coast had described how their operational processes could be integrated and improved via use of the IL-4 Mattermost text chat capability that was offered by Platform One, and that platform, built to connect software developers, was going to be here for the long term. What emerged from this best-of-breed runoff was that the Aircrews gravitated to great chat instead of Wicker's integrated but very softish voice video chat files capability. Since Wicker RAM was in operational use in deployed environments, AMC made a small investment to keep that going, but Platform One's rapid innovation, improvements, expansion, and engagement with its users regarding its strategic direction gave Mattermost the lead position. However, Aircrew adoption alone won't create a strong value chain. We needed the 618th Air Operations Center to also adopt it, and for that we needed headquarters AMC functional sponsorship, and we needed to make it all work on the electronic flight bag too, and in a way that made sense for the Aircrew's use case. Weaving the people, the processes, and the tools together is what a Chief Information Officer does. So as the CTO to the CIO, I work to do just that, and we made a lot of sausage along the way. As we worked through many unfortunate obstacles, I also became much better connected to many unexpected opportunities. One major opportunity was to connect with the software factory community, especially with Tron. They develop software such as Puckboard and integrate into the P1 methodology and hosting environment. You might have heard of the term DevSecOps. That's what they bring. This exposed the real revolution of the digital aircrew initiative. Mattermost brings the aircrew, software factories bring the algorithms, and together they create a nexus of data that is extremely useful for a host of future RGM needs. In late August, the Air Force Chief Software Officer formally recognized AMC's software factory. It's called Conjure. It's in the 375th CSPTS at Scott. And they committed to integrating into the P1, Platform One methodology and hosting environment for their future applications. We also need to explore doing this with our mega systems, providing MAF, command and control, C2, and in-transit visibility like GDSS, CAMPS, GATES, GTIMs, etc. But that's a hard job still ahead of us. Let's talk a little bit about that. I know that the slide is unfortunately having some technical issues, but it's talking about enabling joint all-domain C2. And it lays out kind of where we were and how we are getting into that future state. The future state's a little cut off, but maybe the future state's changed. And what you can't see below the waterline of this slide is the bottom of it, and it's talking about, it's all about the data, what we're trying to do with our applications and platforms and people. And that's still true. So the slide that we've got up, it illustrates that IT vision that AMC and its partners have been working together forward on for over a decade. Our major systems of record, like the Global Decision Support System, were highly secure and highly available, but they were also becoming massive monoliths, each solving common problems different ways with different teams. They were costly, they were complex, and this became drag that impeded changes. We increasingly needed to tie their data together in standard ways. Users needed to be able to run several of them at once, but the workstation clients did not play well together because they were tested independently. Hey, there we go. Awesome. Unlike the Air Force Software Factory community, the development and most of the sustainment of these mega systems is outsourced to industry, and there are manual checkpoints at each handoff between contractors and the U.S. government program managers, and those handoffs take time. GDSS, the largest of the mega systems, pioneered several capabilities that we wanted all the other systems to be able to benefit from too. Fault-tolerant, globally distributed computing centers, service-oriented architecture, and web clients for end users were some of those major attractions. This vision was to begin breaking the systems down into their Lego components. Components common to all were to be built once and then reused by all. This would cut costs and enable a shared engineering team instead of every program having its own. And it would eliminate many competing copies of data. There would be a single source of truth. We could also use shared service contracts for all of our systems, and that was a huge cost saver. When things needed to talk to each other, we were going to use standard web services. We call this Mobility Enterprise Information Services, instead of creating a forest of bespoke connections. This also decoupled the dependencies we had with other commands major systems like TVMCS, so we didn't have to synchronize releases like we did before. Because of these things, we could then host these systems in a resilient set of common data centers, and we could move from thick clients to web-based applications for the end users. Using those commercial standards made it possible to now access these systems on end devices like mobile devices that our thick client approach could not affordably do, and we could roll out a change across the world very quickly. However, speccing, funding, and building those changes still took forever. We needed to get to a family of lighter and leaner applications, and we had some successes with agile efforts for newer capabilities. We also needed to take advantage of commercial cloud capabilities, which had become commodities, so our engineers could focus on MAF unique needs instead of that undifferentiated heavy lifting. As we moved to cloud, which has not been easy, cheap, or fast, we found ourselves hindered by unexpected interdependencies, which made formal tests harder and harder. Worse, we had many things that wanted to be tested, but we could only test one thing at a time because we only had one environment. We saw the promise of cloud-based development and test environments that we could spin up and spin down, and in parallel even, the value of automating those things. So we got rid of some of the manual stuff that was slowing us down, and the attractiveness of continuous approval to operate that results from that kind of approach. But we struggled with the monumental transformation that our legacy program offices would have to go through. As we were working with strategic partners like U.S. Transportation Command, we were also watching the Air Force software factories as they pioneered ways to accomplish the things we wanted to do. We participated in several MAF software development efforts, and we harvested those lessons learned. Platform One then united the best of the best across the Air Force and perhaps the DoD into a playbook of great value, and then they commoditized access to that environment. I see an awesome opportunity for AMC to solve its program management impasse through future partnership with Platform One, if we can convince our stakeholders and figure out how to re-engineer this aircraft in flight. This digital aircrew initiative draws aircrew and C2 elements, the folks who are in direct touch with operational missions and firsthand situational awareness, into the Platform One ecosystem. If we can get aircrew engaged in P1, then we can engage aircrew with P1 enabled MAF command and control and in-transit visibility capabilities. At first, those will be the smaller greenfield systems coming out of the software factories and software squadrons. However, as you'll hear in a moment, those software factories are hungry for MAF C2 in-transit visibility, logistics, personnel data in order to increase their value to aircrew. We have a nexus of opportunity then to also find a way to integrate the mega systems into this ecosystem for the good of everyone. To better illustrate what's going on in the software factories and why it is highly relevant to you, the operator in the field, I'd like to introduce Captain Eric E-Rob Robinson.
Thank you, Mr. Walker. Appreciate all that info and a lot of really good background information. So I'll just take a step back. We've seen a really cool microcosm of what could be with Mattermost and with taking a tool, seeing a need, getting it launched, getting it scaled, doing that really, really quickly. We've seen Mr. Walker's presentation about the goal, the outcome of having sort of unified systems, single source of truth, a lot of things that we've been talking about as aircrew, as airmen for forever, right? Like we want to have one source of truth. I don't want to update things in 50 different systems. However, all of this this whole platform one, this jargon thing, is based around a single idea, the idea that value does not exist until a single user decides that it exists. You don't actually get anything out of a 10-year program if nobody uses it for 10 years. You are continually accruing risk the entire time. And so what you see here, this set of slides, there's a collection of tools that allow us to move really, really fast, to be able to experiment cheaply, and hopefully to be able to change the mindset of everybody across the board, end to end, from airmen through squadron commanders, through wing leadership, all up to the MAGCOM, all the way up to the Pentagon, changing a mindset of saying, hey, when we decide what the software is that's going to rule our aircrew's life, the things that we're going to look at 90% of the day, we move more towards an experimental user-based approach rather than looking at a tabletop review. That doesn't mean to say that if we do a tabletop review that it's necessarily bad or that people have bad intentions, but everybody brings bias to the table. Everybody brings their past experiences. And unless you're the people actually using the software day to day, you become quickly irrelevant in in what the real needs of the users are. Even further, we all see how fast a lot of the big tech giants work, right? We need to be able to move that fast. Mattermost might not be the solution for 10 years, for 5 years, for 2 years, for 6 months. There might be something incredibly, so much better that comes out in 6 months that we all want to use it. We need to have a framework that allows us to adapt to that. If we can do that, that brings us a lot of value. That means that we can start getting after, getting rid of all this extra time that we spend trying to put data into 50 systems, waiting for loading circles, and actually try to identify systems and features that meet real needs of real users. So what does that mean in terms of aircrew or in terms of senior leaders? We've done a really good job as an Air Force starting to unite a lot of the technology, bringing together a lot of talent around the DoD. However, we need involvement from everybody, all the users, to be able to start validating, giving feedback, getting data into the system, telling people when things work well, when they don't work well. That is how we actually know if not just Mattermost, but all these other things that Justin brought up, Widow, if you're looking at mission planning, Puckboard, if you're looking at flight scheduling, Puckboard logging, if you're looking at logging training. We're not going to know for sure if we're building the right products if we're not actively engaging and getting user feedback and being able to change quickly. So what I would ask is that take a look, whether you've used Mattermost, whether you've used something else, try it out, try to become part of the community, because that's ultimately what's going to lead to the bigger picture of us actually getting an integrated suite of software that hopefully starts to solve the real problems that we see every day. So with that, I'll kick it back to our leads.
All right, thanks. So that concludes the formal presentation part of today. So we'd like to start answering some of your questions.
All righty, folks, those were some really great comments and ideas, and we've gotten some very good questions from the field. So I'm going to start with the most popular question first, and that was, with this tech relying on internet access, how do you connect your crews so these important documents can be sent and received when they are in remote locations?
So that's a really great question. And I think one of the guys best to answer that is probably Justin, because he's in a remote location.
Yeah, thanks, John. As a deployed DO right now, I'm dealing with that very issue. So I can tell you the way that we've been solving it. In the deployed environment, we have access to commercial Wi-Fi or cellular data pucks, and that's how the crews are getting access to the system. For the command and control and the op centers where I sit every day, we're able to make use of a normal NIPR connection. And that's one of the unique things about this system is whether you're commercial, whether you're on Wi-Fi or you're on a government internet, you bring the pipe, you get the connection to the data. As an example, the DV squadrons have been using their in-flight data link in order to get that connectivity. In the future, this capability could integrate well and be very complementary to efforts like the Joint All-Domain Command and Control, Advanced Battle Management System, or even Beyond Line of Sight efforts. And all of those are looking at integrating a military Internet of Things. And if you have that connected network, then this software can run on that backbone. Over.
All righty, that hit that one really solid. Here's a question showing me that people are really getting excited about this. How do AMC airmen get their ideas considered for software for software development at a command level?
So I think probably E-Rob's the best guy to answer that.
Cool. Thanks. So number one, I would say start engaging with your Spark cells. That's the model the Air Force has started putting together. If you're a Spark cell lead, start collecting ideas, get involved in Mattermost. You know, you can reach out. We'll have emails up here for people to reach out to. Start funneling ideas, bringing them back up. One thing that I would say that really, really helps is understanding there's a ton of ideas. And some of them are similar, some of them are different. If you have the capacity to bring one of those ideas to reality or to contribute to something, or you want to learn how to do that, there's actually quite a few opportunities available to do that. And that is probably the fastest and best way if you have something that isn't already in works, or if you want to find out what is in works, to know that you're not about to go out and reinvent the wheel, but instead you can contribute. So you'll see some emails at the end here. I would write those down specifically for the contribution piece. There's an Airman Coders email and a Tron email. Feel free to send messages to that. And for the ideas piece, I would reach out through your local Spark cells. Thanks.
All righty. Again,
sorry. Can I pause you there? Stephen wants to provide some answer as well.
I also want everyone to know that the larger, kind of to piggyback on what E-Rob said, the larger DevSecOps community has started holding Ask Me Anything webinars. And they're a great way to kind of dip your toe into what some of the projects, some of the concepts and technical pieces of the puzzle is being considered in the larger DevSecOps community. E-Rob, do you know the best way to find those AMAs from the DevSecOps community?
Yeah, they're usually posted on software.af.mil. I will say for the next few weeks, the AMAs are going to be on pause for a bit, at least last discussions we had, because we're in the progress of trying to make sure that we can scale access appropriately. But be on the lookout, software.af.mil, AMAs get published there.
All right, next question I think is really related to the one we just answered. What is the onboarding process for a C-17 squadron to use Mattermost and other Platform One tools? Is there any documentation available to help them get started?
So Stephen's going to answer this question. Luckily, you won't be the first squadron to join us, so there's a lot of documentation out there on how to join.
So at the end of this presentation, we're going to have a contact slide. There's going to have all of our emails and our Mattermost handles, so you can find us. We have a packet of documents, call it a starter's guide, that everyone who wants to see kind of what we're doing and how we're doing it can reach out to us, and we'll be able to send you a pretty solid set of documents that not only has our onboarding guides that we've kind of really honed and cut our teeth across probably several thousand users at this point, but we also have the checklist that we give our air crews to actually use to make sure they have all the documents in the right order and the steps to take. We have the fillable PDF forms that you can use to fill in and type in all the information on 781s and that kind of thing. So you'll be able to reach out to us. We'll give you basically a starter's packet for all of this information.
And there's info on how to actually sign up for Mattermost on our final slide as well.
All righty, a follow-up question. I'm sorry, this is a question that is from our industry. And this one is, I'm with the Silicon Valley Tech Company. How can industry support your effort?
Yeah, so I think Justin's probably the best guy to answer this one as well.
Yeah, thanks, John. As someone who works in a Spark cell, I'll say that one of the things I enjoy about that is the opportunity to work with the industry pretty often, and the Air Force organizations such as AF Ventures, Phoenix Spark, other Spark cells, and AFWorks are all great avenues to get into being able to collaborate with us when we have these kind of problems. Also, from time to time basis, we'll put out a commercial solutions offering or a question to help with these kind of efforts. And all of that kind of flows through the Small Business Innovation Research Grants or SBIR process, which is how a lot of the efforts that we're talking about today got started. So Spark Sales and AFWorks are a great way to get plugged in directly with us as we work on these efforts. Over.
Our next question, what advantages does Mattermost offer compared to CVR teams?
So that's a very interesting question. And we kind of, I guess I would say we thought this question was going to come. So I'll take that one. But if you could pull up our backup slide on impact levels, that would help. So you've probably heard us talk IL2, IL4, 5, 6. What does that mean? So we've kind of taken the most common impact level kind of guide that you could get off Google and tried to make it Aircrew friendly, right? We put pictures on it. So if you want to look at impact level 2, you're talking Zoom for government. Platform 1, Mattermost will have an impact level 2 instance. Cisco WebEx. If we're talking impact level 4, we're looking at the main Mattermost Platform 1 instance that we're using. Impact level 5, that's your Chess Office 365 products. That's your on-network Teams, GDSS. And then as you get into impact level 6, you're talking secret. So the main difference for Aircrew between impact level 4 and 5 is accessibility. There's a slight difference in what type of controlled unclassified information you can talk about, but the main difference is how you can access it. So for CVR teams, it is a DoD program. It was not built at impact level 4. It was built at impact level 2, and part of trying to get through the pandemic, right, came with a waiver into impact level 4. So it is being utilized at impact level 4 on a waiver. The difference here with Platform 1's Mattermost, its instances are built, deployed, and monitored at the impact level that they're at. So we fully trust what we're getting, and we expect it to be around a lot longer. Mr. Walker might be able to talk a little bit more, but CVR teams is not cheap if we were to continue it. And I don't believe the intent is ever to keep CVR teams as a permanent solution. And I think Ward's going to talk.
Yep. So thoughts about CVR kind of lead us back to exactly where we were just talking about, these impact levels. For a long time, I think many of us had thought that bigger is better. So why would I want a 4 if I could have a 5? And much of the systems that we do our work on are at impact level 5. Now, it's not willy-nilly. They do national security functions, but is all of that system needing to be at 5, or is a piece forcing us to 5 and we're dragging the rest of it with it? And I think about the loss of convenience you get as you move through these steps. What you're asking for is more and more control and isolation in order to protect what you're trying to protect. And think about, it gets confusing when you talk about IT, so let's try to find some other way to talk about it. And maybe a fitting analogy or metaphor, whatever is linguistically correct there, might be your money that you need. You probably have some money that you leave out in your dashboard of your car, petty change, things like that for convenience. You might put some money in your wallet and you protect that and you carry it around, you kind of monitor where it is. And other stuff, other valuables that are really valuable to you, maybe you lock them up in a safe deposit box. Does that mean that everything should be locked up in a safe deposit box because it's the strongest way to protect things? It might be really hard to buy that Burger King sandwich in the drive-thru if you took an approach like that. And that's what we've done to our Aircrew. We have put them in a lockbox of IL5 for everything. And we need to rethink that, because if we can't meet the mission where the mission's happening, then what good is the system that we're trying to put towards it? There's a time and a place for everything. There are reasons why we need to have some things at IL6, but you've probably dealt with people in your professional life who maybe because their SIPR computer is faster than the NIPR computer, they're putting everything onto SIPR, even the unclassed stuff. And it makes it hard to work with those kinds of organizations when you need to share that unclassed information with some other partner. And so I would say that the roles of these things, the Platform One has done something that I think is unique in all the people that I have experienced to date. And they have taken this, for example, the chat capability of the commercial app called Mattermost, and they've made it available at IL2, 4, and 5. And if someone can throw some money their way for help desk, they'll make it available at IL6. So that's pretty unique. And I like what I see there is because the air crews can get to what they need in the manner they need to get it. And if we're handling something that's a nuke-related mission and you have to be at IL5, then step away from the aircraft, get on a hard line, get on a secured phone, and do the transaction that way. But anyway, just kind of the things. I'm also the AMC representative for CVR, and CVR has certainly had a much longer life than we were told in the beginning. Currently, it's supposed to end in mid-December, but it will probably be continued on until June in 2021. It will not be continued farther than that. The Air Force was out ahead of the other services with our CHES application. Once again, IL5. What DoD is trying to do is get the other services and agencies to go onto their own IL5 versions of that, and Microsoft Office 365. And then what the Air Force would like to do is find a way to have IL5, but also make it more accessible. So this is kind of think about, we want to have a safe deposit box that we can carry around with us. And as you can imagine, that might not be lightweight or easy to stuff in your pocket. So we're working on that problem, but we haven't necessarily solved that. And for those folks that said they're from industry and they'd like to know what cool hard problems need to be solved, how do we make IL5 ultra secure but ultra accessible? That might be an interesting SIPR. Back over to Gary.
And sorry, before we start the next question, I think E-Rob wanted to weigh in on this one as well.
Yeah, thanks. Honestly, I think the answer to this one is simple. Mattermost works for the job to be done for us. What we're trying to do is ship crew papers securely into Goodreader. And it takes 30 seconds to do that from the time a flight manager pulls crew papers, puts it into a chat, sends it, you open it on your Mattermost app on your EFB, and then you ship it over to Goodreader. That's it. I do not believe, Justin, please correct me if I'm wrong, that CVR can do that. And that's what we need. Otherwise, you're spending 4 hours or you're going a roundabout way, like putting something through Gmail and then trying to upload it to a cloud and download it and work with the security and the UEM on your device to actually get your papers into Goodreader. And that doesn't work. So 30 seconds and it works. That's why I would use Mattermost.
Okay, next question. Is there any news on bringing a GTIMS app to EFBS?
So I don't have any news on a GTIMS app. I don't know. The only person that on this panel that might would be Mr. Walker. I don't see him kind of raising his hand. So I hate to kind of kick this question, but no one involved with this effort knows about GTIMS. Sorry.
Hey, don't know sometimes means don't know, and that's all right. Another question for Mr. Walker. He mentioned Conjure. Who are they and what projects are they working? Okay.
Conjure, if you've ever worked with the airmen inside of the 375th CSPTS, Com Squadron Support Squadron, can't remember what name now, but you use the acronym too much, you forget what it stands for. But They were knighted by the chief software officer as a software factory, just like Tron, just like Kessel Run, these other names that you're much more familiar with, perhaps. And they are busy working on things. If you've been involved with the Magellan app, they're the folks who are behind Magellan. They have several other things that they have worked before, sometimes with the Kessel Run folks. Some of the things they've done have been, they wrote an Honor Guard application so that Honor Guard members across the Air Force that needed a better way to schedule their team work could do that. And that has been picked up by, I forget the office, but up at SAF, the folks in charge of Honor Guards, as a thing that could be rolled out across the Air Force. And that's a pure win. So when we look at what we've got, what makes Conjure kind of unique, what makes Conjure unique is that it's all airmen with a capital A. They are all wearing uniforms, or there are some civil servants in there. And that's an interesting opportunity to be able to get after problems without having to solve the problem of who's going to pay the contractor to work on this. Now, with everything, there's one thing about developing a prototype and being able to show that off, having it work in a realistic and feasible environment as a minimum viable product that meets the operational need. It's a whole nother problem, though, to figure out how to solve sustainment. And we have been working a lot with EROB and Tron and the Platform One crew to get much better at understanding, one, how to kind of move requirements back and forth to each other, and two, how to approach the issue of software sustainment. And I'll kick it over to EROB right now, just in case I've forgotten something germane that he may want to add, because he's been doing the software factory business much longer than I have.
Thanks, sir. Yeah, big picture, everybody knows that sustainability is, it can sometimes be a bad word in this community, but there is a reality of continued operations. There's a few different models there. I think taken back to just the question of what is Conjure, if you reach out to either the Airman Coders or Tron email, we can connect you with the Conjure leads. One of their biggest flagship apps, like Mr. Walker said, is Magellan. And if you're a DO or an ADO and you've ever had to calculate RDAP and report those numbers up and figure out crew availability, one of the big outputs and goals of that application for them is to help bring visibility to that. And we are working on connecting that with another application called Puckboard for flight scheduling, so that if data is in one, then it can be utilized and evaluated in the other. So they have a few other applications as well, but from an AMC standpoint, that's probably like the really big one that a lot of people will care about.
Well, gentlemen, that's been very informative and interesting, and we've essentially run out of time. So I'd like to kick it back to John for his closing comments.
Sure, thanks. So I'm actually going to pass it over to Stephen to provide our closing remarks today.
Again, we just wanted to thank ATA for the support and the platform to get this message out and to share this. But the most important thing from today is what can each of us do to make our sphere of influence in the Air Force more agile, efficient, resilient, lethal. So on the screen here, we just put up some ideas. They're really big ideas, but I think they're important to hit. The senior leadership of the Air Force, we have a vision from the Chief of Staff of the Air Force and the Chief Software Officer to move quickly, but there are some barriers to that, and just kind of acknowledging that and helping the entire system push through those barriers. And then wing and squadron leadership, getting involved with and supporting your base Spark Cell is so critical. Innovation was a ragtag network of good troublemakers until COVID hit. And then we very quickly became the safety net for continuing work through COVID's initial shock all over the Air Force. So continuing to support that and viewing it as an asset and a capability. And then for all of us, just mobility airmen, make noise, connect with the innovation network, spread across the Air Force. don't accept the way things have been done. Don't accept the business of today as being just the way it's done, but strive to move us forward into tomorrow. Another important aspect that I really want to highlight and take this opportunity to talk to just our base level airmen and the leadership here on our tactical level is the importance of communicating our needs and requirements to our command. That's something that we really have learned through this whole process. So right now, if I were to list the 6 most important or common programs that an aircrew member uses inside of AMC to fly airplanes, it would probably be ARMS, GDSS, a flight planning software like CFPS, ForeFlight, and then now very quickly units are using Mattermost for C2 communication, and then Puckboard is experiencing explosive growth across the MAF. In the list of 6, 3 of those programs are paid for by what's known as at-risk funding. So, which just means in oversimplified terms that AMC FM uses end-of-year money. They're not programmed funds. So it is so critical for us at the tactical level to express how important some of these requirements are and how we use them day-to-day operations, what we need going into the future. AMC can't support us if we are not providing feedback, if we're not providing 1067s for building future requirements, or providing data on our innovation efforts and how it's affecting our day-to-day operations. So everyone here, you heard how we're using Mattermost and the digital paperwork. If you want to bring this to your unit, like we talked about before, reach out to any of the people or the email addresses on this slide. We'll be able to get you a package that has all the information that your unit needs to get started. And in final closing, I just want to say this has been an amazing opportunity. And again, I want to thank everyone for joining us. That's all we've got for today.
Well, thank you again, gentlemen. And now I'd like to send you back to the Airlift Tanker Association Vice President for Programs, Ms. Patty Cost.
Thank you. I just want to say thank you to everyone that was involved in this presentation today. I think it's very enlightening and very important to see the innovation that's going on within the Air Force. I've had the opportunity to visit some of the Spark cells and the innovation labs, and they're phenomenal. What great work. So I thank you very much for this presentation. We really enjoyed it. And then lastly, I just wanted to tell everybody to mark your calendars for September 25th for our next leadership series, which is round 9, when Colonel Angie Robertson, the Air Mobility Command A1, will have her leadership seminar. So thank you very much, and to everyone that attended, thank you for joining, and everybody have a great day.
And again, thank you for joining us today. The views expressed in this presentation were those of the speakers and do not reflect the official policy or position of the United States Air Force, the Department of Defense, the U.S. government, or the Airlift Tanker Association. If you are not an ATA member, please consider joining us today at https:/atalink.org/become-a-member. Lastly, if you have any comments or suggestions for future topics or guests, please send them to us at admin@airlifttanker.onmicrosoft.com.